People got very excited about graphene, and for good reason. It started back in 2004. Two scientists at the University of Manchester were playing around with a block of graphite. The same stuff in your pencil. They used a piece of sticky tape, they pulled off a layer, then they used another piece of tape on that layer. They kept doing this, peeling layer after layer. Eventually, they got down to a single layer of atoms, a sheet of carbon just one atom thick. That was graphene. It was so simple, it seemed almost silly. But what they found was not silly at all. This one atom thick sheet of carbon had some incredible properties. The scientists Andrei Geim and Konstantin Novoselov won a Nobel Prize for it just 6 years later. That's fast for a Nobel Prize. It tells you how big the discovery was. After that, the hype train left the station. Graphene was going to change everything. We heard about space elevators, we heard about phones you could fold up and put in your pocket. We heard about batteries that would charge in seconds. We heard about water filters that could make seawater drinkable instantly. Graphene was the miracle material. It was the answer to all our problems. But then, things got quiet. We don't have space elevators. Our phones still break when we drop them. Our batteries still take hours to charge. So what happened? Did the promise fade? Was it all just hype? Not exactly. The story of graphene is more complicated than that. Its potential is real. It's vast. But it's also challenging. The true potential of graphene isn't about one single miracle product. It's about slowly, quietly making thousands of other things better. It's an ingredient, not the whole meal. To understand where it's going, you have to understand what it is. So what makes this stuff so special? It comes down to a few core ideas. First, it's strong. Ridiculously strong. On an atom-for-atom basis, it's the strongest material ever tested. It's about 200 times stronger than steel. Imagine a sheet of plastic food wrap. Now imagine that sheet was strong enough to support the weight of a car. That's the kind of strength we're talking about. This strength comes from the bonds between the carbon atoms. They are arranged in a honeycomb lattice, like a repeating pattern of hexagons. This structure is incredibly stable and efficient at distributing force. So when you pull on it, it doesn't want to break. Second, it's light, extremely light. Is a sheet of graphene big enough to cover a football field would weigh less than a gram. This combination of strength and low weight is a holy grail for engineers. Think about airplanes, cars, or satellites. Anything where you want to make it stronger without making it heavier. Shaving off even a few pounds can save huge amounts of fuel over the lifetime of a vehicle. Graphene offers the possibility of doing that on a whole new level. Third, it's a phenomenal conductor. It conducts both electricity and heat better than almost anything else. It's better at conducting electricity than copper, which is the standard for wires. Electrons can move through graphene with almost no resistance. This means less energy is lost as heat. That's a big deal for electronics. It means faster computer chips that don't overheat. It means more efficient power grids. It also conducts heat better than diamond. This means it can be used to pull heat away from sensitive components like a CPU and a laptop. It can spread the heat out and get rid of it. Fourth, it's almost perfectly transparent. A single layer of graphene absorbs only about 2% of the light that hits it. You can't see it with the naked eye. This is a strange property for something so strong and conductive. Usually things that are good conductors like metals are not transparent. This opens up a whole new range of possibilities. Think about transparent touchscreens, flexible solar cells you could put on a window, or even smart windows that can change their tint. And finally, it's impermeable. It's a perfect barrier. Even the smallest atoms, like helium, can't pass through a perfect sheet of graphene. The atoms in the honeycomb lattice are packed so tightly that nothing can get through the gaps. But you can poke holes in it, and you can control the size of those holes. This makes it interesting for filtration. Here, you could create a graphene membrane with holes just big enough to let water molecules through, but small enough to block salt and other impurities. So you have this list of incredible properties: stronger than steel, lighter than paper, more conductive than copper, transparent, a perfect barrier. When you put all that together in one material, it's easy to see why people got so excited. It sounds like something out of science fiction. The potential seems limitless. So let's look at where that potential could take us area by area. Let's start with electronics. This was one of the first and biggest areas of excitement. For decades, the computer industry has been running on silicon. Silicon is the heart of every computer chip. We've gotten very, very good at making silicon chips smaller and faster. It's called Moore's Law. The number of transistors on a chip doubles about every 2 years, but we're starting to hit the physical limits of silicon. As we make the components smaller, they start to leak electricity and generate too much heat. We can't shrink them much more. Graphene offers a way out. Because electrons move so fast through it, you could theoretically build transistors that are many times faster than silicon ones. This means much faster computers, and because it's so thin, you could pack more of them into the same space. But maybe the most exciting part is flexibility. Silicon is brittle, it shatters. Graphene is flexible. You can bend it, stretch it, and fold it without breaking it. This is where the idea of flexible electronics comes from. Imagine a smartphone you could roll up like a newspaper, or a tablet so thin and light you could wear it on your wrist, wearable sensors that conform perfectly to your skin to monitor your health. All of this becomes possible with a transparent, conductive, and flexible material like graphene. It could be used for the screen, the circuits, and even the battery. We're already seeing early versions of this in some foldable phones, but those are still clunky. Graphene could make them truly seamless and durable. Then there's energy. This is another massive area of potential. It breaks down into two main parts: generation and storage. For generation, think solar panels. Most solar panels today are based on silicon. They're pretty good, but they have a limit to how much sunlight they can convert into electricity. Graphene is transparent and highly conductive. You could use it as a transparent electrode on top of solar cells. This would let more light in and collect the electricity more efficiently, boosting the overall performance of the panel. Because it's flexible, you could even make solar cells that can be integrated into clothing, backpacks, or the body of a car. But storing that energy is just as important. This is where batteries and supercapacitors come in. Our modern world runs on lithium-ion batteries. They're in our phones, laptops, and electric cars. They're good, but they have problems. They take a long time to charge. They degrade over time. And they can sometimes be a fire hazard. Graphene could improve batteries in several ways. You could add it to the electrodes of a lithium-ion battery. Because graphene has a huge surface area and is very conductive, it can help the battery charge and discharge much faster. It could also make the battery last longer and be more stable. We're talking about charging your phone in minutes instead of hours, or charging an electric car in the time it takes to fill a tank with gas. Beyond traditional batteries, there are supercapacitors. A supercapacitor is like a hybrid between a battery and a regular capacitor. It can't store as much energy as a battery, but it can charge and discharge almost instantly. It can also do this hundreds of thousands of times without wearing out. The problem is that they don't hold enough juice to power a phone for a whole day. Graphene, with its massive surface area, could be the key to building supercapacitors that can store almost as much energy as a battery. Imagine a device that charges in 30 seconds and lasts all day. That's the dream of graphene-based energy storage. Next, let's talk about materials science. This is where graphene's strength and lightness come into play. It's all about composites. A composite is a material made by combining two or more different materials. The goal is to get the best properties of each one. Carbon fiber is a good example. It's a composite of carbon fibers embedded in a polymer resin. It's very strong and light, which is why it's used in race cars and high-end bicycles. Now imagine adding a tiny amount of graphene to that resin. Even a very small percentage, like less than 1%, can make the final composite material significantly stronger, stiffer, and more durable. The graphene flakes act as a reinforcement on a nanoscale level. They stop cracks from forming and spreading. This could lead to airplane wings that are lighter and stronger, reducing fuel consumption. It could mean cars that are safer in a crash because the body's stronger, yet lighter, making them more efficient. It could be used in wind turbine blades, making them longer and more efficient at capturing wind energy. It's not just for high-tech applications. You can add graphene to concrete. This is already being tested. Adding a small amount of graphene can make concrete significantly stronger and more water-resistant. This means you could use less concrete to achieve the same strength, reducing the massive carbon footprint of the cement industry. Buildings and bridges could last longer before needing repairs. Graphene can also be used as a coating. Because it's impermeable and very strong, a thin layer of graphene-based paint could protect metal from rust and corrosion far better than traditional paints. It could be used on ships, pipelines, or industrial equipment. It could also be used to make anti-ice coatings for airplane wings or power lines. Because graphene is such a good thermal conductor, it can spread heat around, preventing ice from building up in the first place. Then we move into the world of medicine and biology. This is where things get really interesting, and maybe a little further into the future. Because graphene is essentially just carbon, the same element that forms the basis of life, it is potentially biocompatible. The body might not see it as a foreign invader. One of the most promising areas is in biosensors. A biosensor is a device that can detect specific biological molecules like a virus, a protein that indicates cancer, or high blood sugar levels. Because graphene is a single layer of atoms, its electrical properties are extremely sensitive to anything that touches its surface. If a specific molecule sticks to a piece of graphene, it will change the way electricity flows through it. You could build a sensor that gives an instant reading. This could lead to diagnostic tools that can detect diseases like cancer or Alzheimer's much earlier than we can today from a single drop of blood. Another area is drug delivery. The idea is to attach drug molecules to a tiny flake of graphene. Because the graphene flakes are so small, they can travel through the bloodstream. You could then guide these flakes to a specific part of the body, like a cancerous tumor. Once they arrive, you could trigger them to release the drug exactly where it's needed. This would be much more effective than flooding the whole body with chemotherapy drugs, which kills healthy cells along with the cancerous ones. It would reduce side effects and make treatments more effective. There is also tissue engineering, and scientists are trying to grow new organs and tissues in the lab to replace damaged ones. To do this, you need a scaffold for the cells to grow on. Graphene could be an ideal scaffold material. It's strong, flexible, and conductive. Cells seem to like growing on it. And because it conducts electricity, you could potentially use electrical signals to encourage the cells to grow in a certain way, for example, to create new nerve tissue. And then there's water filtration. This goes back to graphene's impermeability. We talked about poking tiny, precisely sized holes in a graphene sheet. This creates a membrane. You could make the holes just big enough for water molecules to pass through, but too small for salt ions, minerals, or pollutants. This would be a highly efficient way to desalinate seawater or purify dirty water. Current desalination plants use a process called reverse osmosis, which requires very high pressure and uses a lot of energy. A graphene filter could potentially do the same job with much less energy. This could have a massive impact on parts of the world that suffer from water scarcity. So, with all this incredible potential, we come back to the original question. Why isn't graphene everywhere? If it can do all this, why am I not holding a graphene phone right now? This is the reality check. The journey from a laboratory discovery to a mass market product is long and hard. Graphene faces some very big hurdles. The biggest one is manufacturing. The sticky tape method is great for making tiny, perfect flakes for research in a lab. But it's not how you make things on an industrial scale. We need to be able to produce large, high-quality sheets of graphene cheaply and reliably. And that has proven to be very, very difficult. There are methods to do it, like chemical vapor deposition. This involves growing a sheet of graphene on a surface like a copper foil. It works, but it's a slow, expensive process. And the quality can be inconsistent. You can get defects in the honeycomb lattice, like missing atoms or extra atoms. These tiny defects can ruin the material's amazing properties. A small crack can compromise the strength. A wrinkle can disrupt the flow of electrons. Making a perfect meter-wide sheet of graphene with no defects is still a huge challenge. There's also the problem of working with it. How do you handle a material that is only one atom thick? How do you cut it? How do you move it from the copper foil it was grown on to the surface of a computer chip or a solar cell without tearing it or introducing wrinkles? These are serious engineering problems that we are still trying to solve. Then there is the issue of integration. Graphene doesn't exist in a vacuum. To be useful, it has to be integrated with other materials. You have to add it to a plastic, or put it on top of silicon, or mix it into a paint. And sometimes, it doesn't play well with others. The amazing properties you see in a pure graphene flake can disappear when you mix it with something else. Getting the graphene to disperse evenly in a polymer, for example, is tricky. Often, the flakes just clump together, which doesn't help at all. And, finally, there's the cost. In the early days, a tiny flake of high-quality graphene could cost more than gold. The price has come down a lot, but it's still not cheap. For many applications, it's just not cost-effective yet. A car company might be interested in a graphene composite that makes a car 10% stronger. But if it makes the car 50% more expensive, nobody will buy it. Graphene has to compete with existing materials that are cheap, reliable, and that we have been using for decades. This is why the first real-world applications of graphene are not the revolutionary ones we dreamed of. They are the evolutionary ones. They are in areas where you only need a small amount of graphene, and you don't need it to be a perfect single sheet. We are starting to see graphene being used as an additive. It's being mixed into plastics to make them stronger and more conductive. It's in some high-end sports equipment like tennis rackets or cycling helmets to make them stronger and lighter. There are graphene-enhanced running shoes that claim to have more durable soles. There are paints and coatings that use graphene for better protection. There is even a company using it in concrete for a commercial building. These applications are not as exciting as a space elevator, but they are real and they are important. This is how new materials usually enter the market, not with a bang, but with a whisper. They start by improving existing products in small ways. As the manufacturing gets better and the cost comes down, they start being used in more demanding applications. So where does that leave us? What is the true potential of graphene? The true potential is not that it will replace silicon or steel or plastic. The potential is that it will work with them. It will augment them. It will be the plus in carbon fiber plus or concrete plus. It's a super ingredient that can give existing materials new and improved properties. The future of electronics probably isn't a pure graphene computer chip. It's more likely to be a hybrid chip, with graphene used in specific components where its speed and heat conductivity are most needed, working alongside silicon. The future of airplanes might not be a plane made of graphene, but a plane made of a composite material that has a tiny amount of graphene mixed in to make it stronger and lighter. The timeline is also much longer than the initial hype suggested. It took decades for materials like carbon fiber or even aluminum to go from the lab to widespread use. Graphene is still a teenager in the world of materials. We are still learning how to make it, how to handle it, and how to use it effectively. There is still a huge amount of research and development that needs to be done, but the research is happening. Every day, scientists and engineers around the world are finding new ways to make graphene, new ways to control its properties, and new ways to integrate it into real-world products. The progress is slow and steady, not dramatic and revolutionary, but it is happening. So, the initial vision of graphene as a single miracle material that would change everything overnight was probably wrong. And it was a product of excitement and media hype. The reality is more nuanced, more complex, and in some ways, more interesting. Graphene's true potential lies in its versatility. The fact that it has so many amazing properties all at once means it can be applied to an incredible range of problems. From making concrete stronger to detecting cancer earlier, from faster charging batteries to cleaner water. No other material has this breadth of capability. It won't be a single revolution. It will be 1,000 small ones. We won't wake up one day to a graphene-powered world. Instead, the world around us will slowly get better. Our phones will charge a little faster. Our cars will be a little lighter. Our medical tests will be a little more sensitive. And in many cases, we won't even know that graphene is the reason why. It will be hidden inside the products we use every day, making them work just a little bit better. That is the quiet, patient, and true potential of graphene. It's not about changing the world in a flash. It's about improving it, one atom at a time. The hype has faded, and now the real work begins. And that work will likely continue for decades to come, slowly weaving this remarkable one-atom thick sheet of carbon into the fabric of our modern world. It is still one of the most promising materials ever discovered. We just need to be patient.